In the fall of 1918, deep within the tangled, shadowed expanse of the Argonne Forest in northeastern France, a group of 554 American soldiers marched into a trap that would define courage and endurance in modern warfare. They were men of the 77th Division, many of them immigrants, shop clerks, dock workers, and students from New York City, brought together by a common purpose yet untested in the realities of total war. Their commander, Major Charles Whittlesey, a quiet, deliberate lawyer with little combat experience, had been tasked with leading his battalion through dense forests, past fortified German positions, and linking with French forces on their flanks. What no one anticipated was the sudden collapse of coordination around them, leaving them isolated, surrounded, and utterly cut off from the world. From the moment they entered the forest, the Argonne revealed its lethal nature. Every step sank into soft, muddy ground, the dense trees blurring vision and muffling sound, yet amplifying the deadly crack of rifle fire. German machine guns, cleverly concealed behind trunks and in shallow trenches, picked off the men as they advanced. The battalion pushed forward relentlessly, driven by orders from above and a sense of duty, unaware that the units on their flanks had fallen behind or been repelled. By the end of the day, the battalion had penetrated further than anyone realized, only to discover that they were alone in a deadly pocket, surrounded on all sides by an experienced and well-entrenched enemy. The first night in the forest was suffocating. Soldiers huddled in shallow foxholes and behind fallen logs, listening to the distant thud of artillery and the shouts of the enemy. Cold, wet, and exhausted, they tried to rest while keeping watch, fearing that the slightest lapse could mean death. The trees themselves seemed to close in around them, transforming a battlefield into a labyrinth. Messages to nearby units went unanswered. Runners returned only to be sent back with the same grim result: isolation. Major Whittlesey recognized the gravity of their situation, but he remained calm and methodical, knowing that panic would be more deadly than the bullets raining around them. By dawn, the Germans had fully realized their position and moved to encircle them. Waves of infantry launched coordinated attacks, forcing the Americans to defend every inch of the pocket. Each soldier knew that retreat was impossible and surrender was unacceptable. From tree to tree, from trench to trench, the battalion held its ground. The sound of gunfire, mortar shells, and falling trees created a symphony of chaos that lasted hour after hour. The soldiers improvised wherever they could, converting logs into barricades, sharing the meager rations they had, and tending to the wounded as best as possible under fire. As the days wore on, the conditions grew increasingly desperate. Water was nearly non-existent, forcing men to crawl toward small streams exposed to enemy fire. Food had run out, leaving the men to forage for leaves and moss. Exhaustion, hunger, and the constant threat of death pushed them to the limits of human endurance. Yet through it all, the battalion remained cohesive. Officers such as Captain George McMurtry and Lieutenant Harold J. Leake moved tirelessly among the men, organizing defensive positions, encouraging the wounded, and improvising tactics to counter the Germans' advantage in numbers and firepower. The psychological strain was compounded by the deadly risk of friendly fire. American artillery, unaware of the battalion's exact position in the dense forest, began shelling their own troops. Soldiers waved anything white they could find, shouted warnings, and desperately tried to direct the shells away from their position. Amid this chaos, Major Whittlesey demonstrated remarkable calm. He coordinated movements, reassured his men, and devised new strategies to hold the perimeter. His leadership became the backbone of the battalion's survival, and his men's loyalty never wavered. At one point, communication with Allied forces seemed impossible. Traditional runners were intercepted or lost in the dense forest. Then came a solution that would become legendary: a carrier pigeon named Cher Ami. Attached to its leg was a message: "We are along the road 276.4. Our own artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us. For heaven's sake, stop it." Shot through the chest during flight, the pigeon miraculously survived, delivering the message and halting the friendly fire that threatened to annihilate the battalion. Cher Ami became an emblem of hope in the midst of despair, and her journey would be remembered long after the men left the Argonne. As the sixth day dawned, the battalion was reduced to a fraction of its original strength. Of the 554 men who entered the forest, many were dead, wounded, or too weak to fight. Morale was strained to the breaking point. Yet the Americans held, refusing to surrender, knowing that survival depended not only on courage but on coordination, ingenuity, and the steadfast leadership of Major Whittlesey. Small counterattacks repelled waves of German soldiers, and every inch of gained ground was precious. Finally, relief arrived. American reinforcements, coordinated with French units, broke through the German encirclement. The surviving members of the Lost Battalion emerged from the forest, battered, starving, and emotionally shattered. Of the 554 who had entered, only 194 walked out under their own power. The rest were killed or seriously wounded, their sacrifice marking one of the most harrowing episodes of the Great War. Major Whittlesey, McMurtry, Leake, and others received the nation's highest honors for their leadership and bravery, and Cher Ami was awarded the Croix de Guerre for her remarkable service. The story of the Lost Battalion is more than a tale of survival. It is a story of courage in the face of overwhelming odds, of ordinary men transformed into heroes by circumstance. It illustrates the chaos and complexity of war, where isolation, miscommunication, and sheer chance determine life or death. It reminds us that leadership can inspire extraordinary loyalty, and that determination can endure even when hope seems lost. Decades later, historians and veterans alike look back at the Argonne Forest and remember the men who stood, fought, and refused to yield. The Lost Battalion has become a symbol of endurance, of the human capacity to persevere when every element seems against you, and of the quiet acts of heroism that history often overlooks. In the shadowed forests of France, those men left an indelible mark, proof that even in the darkest days courage can prevail, and honor can survive where logic fails.